Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about a new palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. This one is called Lavender Fields. Now I have never done a review on a Simply Posh palette on this channel and I haven't really bought from them before. But I did buy a few other palettes just to test out, just to see if I wanted to add them into the rotation. I'm still looking for some indie brands to add to the rotation. So I also picked up this one since it was brand new. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with the packaging. This packaging is a lot different than their previous packaging, which is your pretty typical palette packaging, like it's just thick cardboard. But this one is that kind of faux leather that Adept Cosmetics used to use, which I actually really like. I feel like it gives the palette a much more luxurious feel, and I like a nice feeling palette. So let's go ahead and take a look inside. This is, I think, one of my favorite color stories that I have seen in a while. And I feel like I say that fairly often, but hopefully not too often, because I just do really love this. I was sort of as an aside, like my private daydream is that maybe someday I'll have my own eyeshadow brand, and I'd really love to design palettes that had color stories that were like from nature photographs. So the idea of Lavender Fields, like that really appealed to me. Like I can just picture the photograph on the cover of the palette and like all these gorgeous colors just pulled from the photo. Yeah, so that is what like yelled to me in this palette, is these absolutely gorgeous, really natural, naturey colors. And I think that's perfect for spring. We get so many pastels for spring, but this actually looks like it came out of a flower field. So there are 18 shades in this palette, and you get 6 shimmers, and there are a few different finishes here. And that works out to about $3.14 per shade. So that's a little expensive, but it's not as bad as some of the other indie brands out there, like Bella Beauté Bar, which is pretty consistently more expensive. And you get those nice 6 shimmers. I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the shimmers for you so you can kind of see those different finishes. But first I'm going to tell you about the looks that I did with this palette, so you can kind of see how it looks on. One of the things about I don't even want to call them neutral, the more natural colors in this palette, is that more of the looks are going to come out more neutral looking. All of these colors are not neutrals. It is more of an, in my opinion, a neutral leaning palette. So the first look I did, I tried to get quite a bit of color in there. I used this shade Fragrant, the light kind of pinky purple in the inner corner of my eye, and I left that there for a lot of color because I just wanted lots of color there. On the outer corner, I used this shade Relaxation, and that turned out to be this nice, really dusty blue. So dusty it almost looks gray, but there's a little bit of the blue purple still in there. And then I used this shade Serenity, which turned out more silvery on the lid than it did purple. But this shimmer had a nice finish to work with. Some of the other shimmers had kind of like that big flaky texture that isn't my favorite, but this one I thought went on really nice and smoothly. And then I went in with this shade Harvest just in the very inner corner of my eye there. I thought it would look interesting, and I feel like it did. It made an interesting contrast to that pink color Fragrant. It stood out a little bit green, but also it made the pink a little bit more muted. I don't know if I would do it in the future, but it turned out interesting. The second look that I did with this palette is the one that I'm wearing today. And I thought this was really fun because it is a more neutral look, but it does also have some color to it. It's not just your standard, totally neutral browns and little bits of pinks. So the first shade that I used was this one, Pasture, and I feel like this is what elevates it beyond just plain neutrals, because I did use that towards the inner corner. And I made it in such a way I was gonna cover a lot of it with shimmer, because I was going for a more muted look, but you can still see in the corner that little pop of green color, which I think turned out really cute. Then I went ahead and used this one, Essence, in the outer corner. And I put not very much on there because, again, I wanted to be kind of understated. So I used it in the outer corner and kind of blended it in. But then after I put the shimmers on, I also went back and put it in as like sort of an eyeliner on the outer top third of the lid, which you can't see it very well, but it's something, like it's there. So it adds something to the look, I think. I then went in with this shimmer Graceful, because I was trying to keep it to like that neutral. But when I used this, it was that like really tons of fallout formula, and it didn't blend on my lids super well. And again, I don't know if other people have the same trouble with this formula that I do, but consistently, indie brands have been putting out this kind of like really big, flaky, tons of fallout formula. So I think I need to get like a glitter glue and see if that helps me out a little bit. I do use a primer, but that does not seem to be effective. So after I used Graceful, I thought that the look needed a little bit something more. So I went in with Sweet Aroma, which I was hoping would be more pink than it turned out. It did not turn out very pink. I used it on the outer corners just a little bit, and it's more gold compared to Graceful, which looks a little bit colder, like a little bit more silver on the eye, but it doesn't really have that pink on my skin tone. So those are the looks that I did with the Lavender Fields palette, and I think, like I said, they turned out quite not neutral, but more muted, more natural. And it's fun in a world where we have so much colorful makeup, and I love bright, bold colors. Like, do not question my love for bright, bold colors. I think it's nice in a world where we have a lot of that to have something that is colorful. We get a lot of color in here, but is also a little bit more muted and a little bit more like take a little step back. It looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so let's talk about the quality of the palette. The mattes I found were really nice, really easy to work with. I wouldn't say they're the best mattes that I've ever used. I'm trying to think of who might be an example of a better matte. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but they certainly weren't the best, but they were really good. The green and the pink, the light colors that I used, blended super well, and even the dark colors blended well. Relaxation and Essence, they were able to blend over into the lighter colors really well and blend into the crease right there really well. So I was impressed with that. Sometimes darker colors have an even harder time blending nicely, but these worked out really well. So I was impressed with the mattes. They feel nice, like they're not dry, they're not too wet, and they're just the right texture. Now the shimmers that I used, I will tell you about the ones that I used. Graceful had that like tons of fallout, really big flakies, hard to get it really good coverage on the eyelid. Sweet Aroma was also a little bit tricky like that. Like it wasn't as flaky as Graceful, but it was still pretty flaky. Serenity was not at all like that. Serenity was a nice, easily blendable shimmer that I felt like went on really well. So let's go ahead and swatch the rest of them and we'll see how they look. I'm going to start with the shade Harvest. Even though I did actually use this, I did not use it with my finger. I just used it with a really tiny brush to get it into that inner corner. So I didn't have a lot of experience with it, but just touching it now, like already I can tell it has a nice texture. That's not going to be something that's hard to deal with. Oh, that's really pretty. So when I put it over the pink the first time I used it, the green really stood out. But now I see it's because it's kind of a pink with a green shift to it. So of course it wouldn't stand out over the pink. It does have a little bit of an orange to it, but in my eyes, looking at it, it looks pink. Okay, next I'm going to swatch Scenic. Okay, and this one also has that nice creamy texture. You can see how it went well on my finger. There's no huge flakes. So I'm guessing it's gonna go really well on my wrist as well. And it did. That's gorgeous. And this is a pretty color. I did not expect this. Looking at it in the pan, it looked really green. But on, it's very blue. The base is blue and it has like a olive green shiftiness to it. This is an interesting color. I feel like I've seen most shifty shades done, but I haven't seen this one before. That is honestly really pretty. Okay, let's try Graceful, and I'm gonna try and show you what I mean by that. Yeah, it's just look at how many like big pieces, big flakes are on there. That's what I'm trying to say by like it's really flaky. And you can see it doesn't even last till like the end of a swipe because it just packs on with those flakies, and I feel like you really have to go in there and blend it. It's not a one swipe kind of a shadow. And maybe this works really well for other people. I just seem to struggle with it personally. This one has kind of a neutral leaning pink base to it, and then that silver shimmer, which is making it look really silver on my eyelids. Okay, next is Sweet Aroma. And I recall this one is kind of flaky too. Yeah, you can see the little flakies there. It's not as bad to me, but it's, yeah. This is quite flaky. Sorry, this is a messy swatch. I just struggle with this. And you can see there's like still big bits of flake even after I'm trying to like blend it, smooth it out. They just stick there. Yeah, that's the best I'm gonna get with that swatch. It has kind of a yellow base and then a nice pink shimmer. That's kind of cool. It's interesting because when I used it, I feel like it didn't get very pink on my eye, but in the swatch, it has like a nice pink shift to it. Super shifty. I wonder if it's because I used it over this shade Essence. Sometimes shifty colors can get weird over other colors. So maybe that's why it just showed up silver for me. Okay, now we're gonna do Serenity. Sorry, I'm getting some sunlight in here because it's getting towards the end of the day. So I'm trying to avoid the sunlight and stick in my studio lighting. Oh, see, like that just glides on so smooth. I love this one. And it's a beautiful lavender purple. This is the perfect color for lavender. And then it has a bit of a silvery sheen to it. That's a gorgeous color. Okay, and now we'll try this Teal Exquisite. This one is a little bit drier. It's kind of a different finish than the other ones. It's not too dry like the recent ColourPop ones I've swatched, but it's definitely drier than the others because you can see it doesn't quite make it all the way across the swatch. But that is a magnificent color. Look at that teal. It is bright, bright, bright. I love this. So we have here like some more of the natural colors. This one's pretty natural. That even is quite natural. But then this one and this one and this one are like really, those are a little bit brighter. I love how they brighten up the more muted colors of the palette. Really pretty. Okay, so those are the swatches for the Lavender Fields palette. I have to say, since the mattes are so nice, and they're just being two shimmers that I find really difficult, and frankly, the two shimmers that I'm probably least likely to use since they are the most neutral colored, to me, this palette is still worth it. But if you are more interested in the neutral shades, or if you really are like already, okay, that's a lot for a palette, this might not be worth it for you to get. Unless you actually love that formula. Somebody please comment down in the comments about how you feel about this formula, because I feel like I can't be the only person who gets frustrated by it. but it's also really common in a lot of the indie brands now, so somebody must like it. Help me out here. So that is the Lavender Fields palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any comments, please do leave them down below because I would love to talk to you about anything about makeup or polish. It does not have to be this palette or the finish of the shimmers. Let's just chat. Thank you all, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.